angle without Maisie just hanging in the background. There we go. Had two note takers join, but without the people they're taking notes for in terms of bots. Give it 5.
Yeah.
You're on a plane over to Austin tomorrow, Claire?
I am, yes. Yeah. It's weird, as you know, I leave on the Tuesday and arrive on Tuesday morning, so it's very weird. But
Definitely.
I think the trick is just not to have your birthday on the way back, so you don't miss it.
That's right. I actually planned to have my 30th, like to fly on my 30th, hoping that I'd get an upgrade to business because it was my 30th, but it didn't work. So it just meant that I was in economy on my birthday.
Dang.
Just for everyone who's joined us and is waiting, we're just going to give it another couple of minutes to allow people to filter through before kicking off. So just bear with us.
We've seen that. That's like the session that kind of went viral. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Hi, Finn. We're just 1 or 2 minutes away from kicking off. We're just letting people filter in.
No worries.
Thanks, mate.
I figure out how to put my phone down so I can look at it.
Yeah. All right, we've given it 5. We've had a few filter through, probably a few more to come. But Claire, if you're good, we might get rolling.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. All right, well, thanks for everyone for joining us for one of our WAM workshops. Just first want to acknowledge that WAM today is on Wajak Buja, and that we're sitting here on the Derbarl Yerrigan kind of acknowledged country, but also acknowledge the fact we've got, of course, Claire and Reg from Sydney, and of course many other people from across Perth and Western Australia from all kinds of different lands. Our webinar today is supported by the DLGSC through the kind of their funding that they give to WAM. So thanks for the DLGSC. And thanks all of you for making it on this kind of teams today. So today we're joined by South by Southwest Sydney. We've got kind of Claire Collins, who's the music director, and Reg Harris, who's kind of the music program manager. They've come through today to talk about, South by Southwest process, what they're looking for. No doubt many of the amazing West Australian bands that we have head over to South by Southwest every single year. And it's also worth noting that I think we've got an incredibly strong WA contingent at the moment over at South by Southwest Austin, who are, really repping WA and Australia very hard and well. So the structure today is that South by Southwest will give everyone an overview. WAM will then supplement that. Maisie Glenn from WAM will do a kind of brief on the funding available through the Contemporary Music Fund and other mechanisms if West Australian artists are successful, about how they could get funding to get over. And then we'll do a general Q&A and let people kind of ask any questions that might have been burning for the presentation. So Claire, thank you for joining us. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Owen. We're coming to you from beautiful Gadigal land, which is also where the event itself is held. So as Owen just mentioned, I'll just give you a brief overview of what the event is, how the previous years have played out, who's come, and then we'll talk a little bit about the application process and what we're looking for. And then happy to answer any questions at the end. So can I just get a sense actually first of who's an artist manager? Actually, that's probably the first question. Sorry, I'll just change my view so I can actually see you all. So could you just raise your hand if you're an artist or artist manager? Can I see that? Yeah. Your actual or your metaphorical hand? Yeah. Great. And how many of you are familiar with the Austin event or the Sydney event, South by Southwest? Okay, cool. So there's a few people here who aren't familiar. So I'll just give a basic rundown of what the history of the event, why it's in Sydney, and what you can expect. So South by Southwest is the largest cultural event in the world, I believe. It's been going in Austin for 35 years. And the South by Southwest Sydney in 2025 will be our 3rd event. And it was chosen because the Austin team wanted to do a Southern Hemisphere event, and they were looking for a place that was kind of central to Asia and was also like a hub for culture and culture organisation. So that's how Sydney was chosen. We've had like some really successful first 2 years. Everyone's very happy with how the event has launched and evolved so far. And I'll just run off some stats of how the past 2 years have played out. So we've had a cumulative audience of close to 300,000 people. That's people who have come and experienced any of the events across tech and innovation, games, screen, culture, and of course, music. The music festival itself. So as the head of music, I'm responsible for like looking after the vision and execution of both the music festival, which Reg can speak to, and also the music content in the conference program. And the event is really for any industry or people interested in culture. So the conference takes in like all of those pillars, which I just mentioned, but as it pertains to music, we've got industry leaders, we've got big stars, we've had Chance the Rapper, Kid Laroi, industry leaders like Lucy Dickens and Paul Tollett, who's the founder and booker of Coachella. And there's lots of professional development sessions, and there's also just more general interest, career marketing topics, a lot of future focused AI, how to get ready for the, developments in AI. And so it's really a choose your own adventure in terms of the conference. We've got over 1,000 sessions there. And if you're like a emerging mid-career or late career music person working in the music industry, there's kind of endless amounts of content for you to learn from and engage with. In terms of the music festival itself, that runs for 4 days. Basically, we have a music festival opening party on the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday through to Saturday is just jam-packed full of concerts and parties and shows and networking events. Both years we've had like around 300 artists performing that many performances across 25 venues. It's all within Chippendale. It's all generally within the Chippendale precinct. So last year we contained the precinct slightly after some feedback that people wanted to be able to walk around, and that worked really, really well. And we had presenters over the past 2 years that included Spotify, Inertia, House of Docs and Vans, Secret Sounds, Laneway Festival, Inertia, that we had Rolling Stone House, and a lot of international houses as well. For example, British Music Embassy, Canada House, New Zealand. Yeah, so there's kind of endless amounts of entertainment and endless amounts of, music discovery to be had. In terms of the people who come, like I said, we've always thought about South by Asia Pacific. So the place to do business in the music industry with Australia, New Zealand, and the Asian territories. And that was kind of an experiment that we're really happy with how it's worked. It's because we have a lot of Asian promoters, festival bookers, and industry come over. We attract a lot of North American and UK and European industry who want to do business with those territories as well. So we're really happy with that. We'll always kind of look to double down on that experience so that, we can all learn a lot more about that, like those exciting new territories and what the opportunities are as local artists as well. We've had a really strong turnout from international delegates. We've had agents from CAA, Wasserman, TBA, UTA, all the kind of like major agencies, and a lot of independent ones too, including Ground Control Touring and a few kind of specialty Asian promoters as well. We've had, like festival promoters. Almost every festival promoter locally has come. So you're talking about Laneway, Yours and Ours. Gosh, I'm trying to think of, like, the first year we had, like, obviously Splendor and all of those people, but like, yeah, we actually have venues and promoter, like the Australian Festival Association has their AGM during the South by week. So you can expect that all the kind of major festival promoters in Australia are going to be at our event as well. And then we had a really good turnout from A&R Scouts, not just from all of the major labels and local independents, but secretly US sent some over. This year we're going to have Dirty Hit and like a lot of other independent record label A&Rs coming out, and publishing too, I should say. We had a really good turnout from publishers as well. So really, if you want to if you feel like you're export ready and you want to come and expand your networks, or if you've got a band who's kind of ready to take that next step, instead of spending what you need to spend to get overseas and play in an equivalent event, we feel pretty confident saying that you can come to Sydney and have a pretty good experience and at least, start to build your team out from Sydney, which is the whole point. And in terms of like alumni that have played before, we've had a really nice mix of internationals to get, fans out, and also locals. So actually maybe I'll let Reg talk to some of the lineup that we've had.
So
do you want to go through?
Definitely. Yeah. So I mean, the music festival takes a few different forms. There are the major component is the music, the showcase festival. That's what South by globally is known for, and that's our main focus as well. So I think in the last 2 years, we've had collectively about 500 artists play from over 20 different countries. in addition to the Showcase Festival, which I mean, I'll run through some of the artists that have played, like internationally. I guess Fuckers are a recent one that have been popped up on the Laneway lineup and everything. They got their first their first Australian play at South by 2 years ago. Other Miss Canina, Phaser Days, Los Bichos from the UK, Lil Cherry and Gold Buddha from Korea. Voice of Vachaprot played last year. They're this awesome metal band from Indonesia. Real mixed bag. Flying a Boss from the US, Annie from the UK. So yeah, real mixed bag of artists. And then in addition to that Showcase Festival, there's a few kind of big ticket affiliate events. So last year was Georgia Smith, and the year before that we had Korean, like big K-pop outfit XG as well. So kind of takes a few different forms. There's also a little bit of music in a part of the precinct we call Tumbalong Park. It's down near Darling Harbour, if you're familiar with Sydney. And that's all free and open to the public as well. So
yeah, and a lot of in terms of like there's a mix of like paid and like showcase opportunities. So we do a few brand partnerships, and the brands are ultimately responsible for programming those events, but we insist that they pay the artists like kind of fees that are like appropriate for the level of talent that they're booking. So some examples of that were Rolling Stone House, House of Vans and Docs, and then like we have like the Ibis music moment on Tumbalong Park. So that had some things. So we're always talking to brand partners and looking for ways to compensate the artists that do come over, and we're always suggesting showcase talent to fill those spots. In terms of, I can run through the application process. So submissions are open now and they shut on the 6th of April. And yeah, we're really looking for artists that are basically the number one thing we're looking for is export readiness. Is there a bit of a story going on? Is the music really great? Is there a really solid live show? And are they ready to kind of like take the next step and launch their career in territories other than the hometown? So not just export outside of Australia, but also just outside of your market. I think for WA, especially, like we know that there's not always the opportunity to get over and play in front of that type of industry. So yeah, really, if you've got built up a solid following in WA, then yeah, encourage you to look into applying. The judging process is done. So basically we go through, like last year we've had between like 1,000 and 1,200 submissions. We've got a team of like industry specialists that will go through and do like an assessment, and then we'll pick around 100, like the number's a bit kind of nebulous, but a minimum of 100 acts to come and perform. And we like to guarantee at least 2 plays for artists that do come over and perform. And so applications shut on the 6th of April, and you know, within 6 weeks we'd like to have that that first main pass of acts and offers sent out. Do you want to speak more to like the selection process and what you look for in terms of like range?
No, I think you've, I mean, yeah, I guess there's no real limit on genre, and you know, really open. I think exactly what Claire said. Export readiness. What's the show like? What's going on with the band, or the act within the next sort of 12 months? There's a pretty in-depth but not very scary. It's pretty easy to fill out form that we'll link to all of you after this, if you do have someone to apply on behalf of. And that's kind of, yeah, just got a whole bunch of questions where we can learn a bit more about what's going on with the act.
Yeah, and timing is really important too. So if you've got you know, a release plan for this year or some kind of touring activity, that is always really helpful to know. You know, we hope to be around for the next few years as well. So I think like if you're not ready this year, like maybe just send your manager over so that they can get a lay of the land and really learn about how to make the most of the opportunity, or do some meetings on your behalf. But then yeah, like we'll always just make sure that the timing is the right thing for the artist too, because we appreciate it's an investment to get over, and we don't want to yeah, we don't want to waste any money. We take everyone's investment really seriously. So we want to make sure it's a really good experience for people who do come over. I think that's the end of our spiel. We do rolling lineup announcements. So like we'll have one at the end of March and then basically monthly announces from May to September. But yeah, I think that's about it from us. So if there's any questions anyone wants to ask, or maybe Owen, do you want to go through the funding opportunity? And
Yep. I might just pass over to Maisie Glenn, who's the new-ish Relationships and Partnerships Officer at Unions WA. Sorry, that's my old job at West Australian Music, slipping back into my old role all of a sudden. She is here to be a resource for artists to be able to kind of assist with pinpointing where grants are available and providing feedback on processes and just being a resource back to industry as well. So I'll just pass over to you, Maisie.
Thanks, Owen. Yes, really excited to be working at WAM. I'm previously a musician and now I've been working in the arts for a good few years. So it's great to be back in the music side of things. Obviously playing at an event like South by Southwest Sydney is an incredible professional development opportunity, and thankfully there's some really fantastic support available. In particular, the DLGSC, or Department of Local Government, Sport and Culture, Creative Industries, can't remember, have a great program called the Contemporary Music Fund SNAP, which is short notice activity program. The hot tip there is if you plan to go for it, you are already ineligible because it's exactly for this kind of opportunity where you're invited to play. So if you do get in as an artist to play, you can get up to $10,000 of support to get over there and do your showcases there. If you're a manager and you're just going for the professional development opportunity, there's also funding, but you also need to prove that you've been invited. So it might be a bit trickier in some circumstances. If you're a regional artist, there's also Regional Arts WA has the RAF quick response grants. That's a little bit less support. There's, I think, $3,000 for individuals for that one, but it can be another source of funding. So if you're a regional artist, you could actually apply for both sources of funding. So that's up to $13,000 of direct support, which is fantastic. That's kind of it for a domestic opportunity, but do keep in mind that if you do have an international opportunity like South by Southwest in Austin, then there's also federal government support. The Australian Live Music Business Council has also got some rounds that are specifically to do with export. That's devolved funding from the federal government, which is really fantastic. I think that's most of it.
Thanks, Maisie. And yeah, it's definitely worth noting that coming out the other end of the state election, which of course wrapped up on the weekend in WA, we did see a commitment from the state government to increase that contemporary music funding by 60%, which puts a substantial more money on the table for musicians to be able to kind of take advantage of these opportunities. And it was a really good WAM kind of advocacy win that we're able to kind of get in there and push that. So we're hoping, you never know if we get it up by the time the funding starts to flow for South by Southwest Sydney, but we're hoping to not only increase the pool of grants available for musicians, but also increase the amount awarded each time. So hopefully we can increase that kind of SNAP grant a little bit more, because we definitely know that the cost of flying and accommodation to Sydney for something like South by Southwest can add up very quick and fast for West Australian artists, particularly regional artists trying to get over. So we'll see if we get some success in increasing that pool for South by Southwest Sydney this year.
Great. Maisie, can I just ask a question? I mean, obviously, we'd like to encourage any managers to come over. I mean, we're happy to provide a letter of invitation for any interested managers so that they can comply with that grant eligibility thing. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I don't work for the grant round, but yeah, there just needs to be some sort of proof that it's an invite rather than just, they're purchasing a ticket. So I did note that there was the opportunity to apply to put together a panel or something like that. So if you're an interested manager, that might be a really good way to go to, perhaps be part of a panel or a chat about something specific to WA and kind of spread the word over there. And then you can also get that government support, which is really fantastic. And as Owen mentioned, having that increase is just so great. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I'm just going to put my email in the chat. So anyone who is interested in going over and does need that application, then does need that letter, I'm happy to provide that. So feel free to hit me up. I'll also just note that we've got our early bird passes available now for sale. And it's a very reasonable $495 to access the whole week of activity, which is, I think, unbelievable value. It's like less than $100 a day if you come for the full week. Those prices will go up like as the months go on. So if you are even contemplating it, now's a good time to have a look at that. And if you wanted to purchase it and then also get a letter of invitation so that you can apply for the funding, recommend that as well.
Beauty, thank you. And just before I go and before I forget, if you are thinking of applying for one of these grants, get in touch with us because we're really happy to help with getting your application together. We'd love to, support you as much as we can because they can be a bit scary the first time around, but we'll do as much as we can. Just try and get in touch nice and early. With the SNAP program, they're designed for short notice, so you only have to apply 28 days before you go. But you could basically just apply as soon as you got in. You could just wait for that opportunity to come through. That's it.
Cool. I'm happy to throw to anyone who might have any questions of either WAM or Claire or Reg. I might go first to Alex, then I'll come to you, Finn. Alex, you go.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, Claire and Reg, thanks for the information. Really good to hear. My question is, so you said about 1,000 applicants-ish apply and around 100 get through. There's probably a fair few like near misses. I was just interested in what some of the factors that someone might, just miss out on might be.
Yeah. I mean, it can be, it really depends on the cohort in each year, but I think the timing thing that Claire touched on is a big one. Like, is there something that's coming up this year that makes 2025 the right year for the Act? Is there a record coming out? Is, maybe they've got, the Act has local agents and is looking to tour overseas and they're really looking to lock down an international agent. Things like that are pressing, I think are really important. And honestly, sometimes I think some things like the amount of artists representing a particular genre and I guess the technical needs of that act can also come into play. So just because it might have been a near miss in one year doesn't mean that it won't happen next year as well. So
we also don't look at like if you play Big Sound, for example, you're also eligible to play South by. In fact, we have no idea who Big Sound book because their event is just a month before. They announced, I think, well, last year they announced like the day before we did and we had no idea. So we're a bit, you were obviously curious to see if there was much of a crossover. And actually, as it happened, there wasn't much of a crossover, I guess, because they are quite two distinct opportunities, obviously different programming teams. So, but we don't look unfavorably on, like, please go ahead and apply for both. We don't hold, it just doesn't factor into our considerations, largely because we don't know who is going to be on that program either. And long may both events coexist. We love Big Sound. We go every year. Like, it's a great event. And we just think we attract a different kind of segment of the industry. And yeah, they're two completely different events. So don't feel like you have to choose. What else there's nothing really that's automatically disqualifying on paper. I think it's like we really want to put together like a cohesive program full of like top quality artists, and if that means that there's 10 heavy metal bands playing and they're all incredible, then great, but there's not one definitive thing, which is very helpful for you. But like above all, it's like artistic quality and great live show and export readiness. So yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Finn.
Hey, how you guys going? Thanks for coming on.
Hi.
My question was, I had a couple of questions actually. I'll try to keep them both brief. When you talk about export readiness, that can be a bit of a difficult thing, I think, as an artist to gauge, obviously. I was just wondering if there's any sort of objective metrics by which you measure that, or if it's more of a kind of vibe thing. Like, is it, for example, if an artist has had a certain increase in streaming numbers over the past year, or if the artist has had, selling a certain number of tickets to their live show, or if it's just that you've heard of them and the feelers are out there and they're making waves, you know what I mean? Or is it a kind of a combination of those things? But I suppose I struggle to know from an
Yeah.
artist's perspective.
Yeah. So basically, it's all of those things, and there's no hierarchy. Obviously, if there's a band that's totally buzzing, it's having a moment on TikTok, we know that all the industry is looking at it. Like, that's going to be almost a definite yes. Even if actually, no, that's actually not true, because like I think ultimately we have to like it as a live proposition. We have to think that the music is good. Like, I think also if an artist is meeting all of those metrics, but we don't think has a great live show, like the industry's already locked into that. Like they're not going to get anything out of it. Like we do like this idea of discovery as well. So, sorry, this probably doesn't help you that much, but the answer is it's usually at least two things.
Yeah.
Like we've heard the live shows kick ass. We really like the song. The timing's good.
I think also like an established trajectory at home, how are things going, at least in the hometown, if not around the country, have you done some notable support slots or a headline tour, or just, been around a bit? Is there talk about your live show? Is it well-oiled live show? I think that's a big thing for me. What's the live show like? And is it,
and you can talk about
exceeding?
like there's some artists that you've just booked that just because you like them, like they haven't had much of a following or anything, but the show's been really good.
It's not always a hard and fast rule. Like I can think of some acts, like probably don't want to get specific, but like, some more DIY acts that aren't on paper like an export ready act, but have blown people away because they're just a really exciting new like act with an electrifying live show, or just a crazy record in the bag that no one's heard until like a couple of weeks before South by. So none of these things are hard and fast, and I know that's like doesn't help when you're filling out a thing like this, but that's kind of why as much information as you can provide really helps us.
And sometimes it's just cosigns, honestly, like sometimes it's just cosigns from other people whose music we respect, like between us, like there's a lot of like new industry and like established industry that we know. And so like we might look at Instagram as like, oh, like 10 people, like it's only got 100 followers, but 10 of those people are people whose opinion we like
and like
well. So like
having conversations with venue owners and people on community radio on Triple J, and it's kind of everything. So beyond the application, we're pretty proactively trying to gather information on the artists we're interested in.
Yeah, we have a lot of like one of our most popular things that we did last year was like we had a unearthed kind of open, I can't remember what we called it. It's kind of like an open house thing. So they just set up in a space, and honestly, it was so busy all day, and like people could just go and chat to on a team. So we do talk a lot to our partners too. It's like, who are you looking at? Who do you want to see come over? I talk to festival promoters, like, who are you looking at? Whose show do you actually want to see? There's just a lot of conversation that goes on. So it's not, if you haven't had like a viral hit on TikTok, like that doesn't matter. Like we look at other things as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, just to address that again, just because it feels as though a lot of the things you're measuring it by, although I appreciate the fact that what you're saying is that you don't need to have a viral hit on TikTok, but I feel like the equivalent of, for example, being on the tips of the people on Unearth's tongues and being on the tip of festival promoters' tongues, I feel like that feels like a similar level of establishedness, if you know what I mean. Like I feel like by that point you're kind of already making waves, and that's the problem. I suppose if you're applying from the perspective of somebody who maybe is export ready in terms of quality, and like the live show,
Yeah.
maybe the live show kicks ass, but at the end of the day, you play all your gigs in Perth because that's where you live and you can't afford to tour.
Yeah.
And no one from over east has ever seen your live show, and so they don't know.
I
Then it just feels
I
a
would
bit
like
like,
to think,
yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, keep
no,
going.
and that's a fair point. And we're definitely based like this. There's a sort of disconnect if you're not living in a particular place. But I'd like to think that despite that, we've got a pretty well-rounded view of what's going on, and also like my background is in like more DIY and community. Like I was in at FBI Radio in Sydney, so I had I guess I've got a real appetite for discovering new things. Sometimes the most exciting thing to me is like a disembodied SoundCloud link with no information that you listen to and it blows you away. So even though
that's literally his favorite thing.
Yeah, that's my so like I think that we're not necessarily just swayed by what the conventional music industry is saying is the most exciting thing. And particularly this year where we've got a few more heads assessing applications, we're going to have a team of about 6 people in total with, I'd like to think, pretty well-rounded take on the Australian music industry. So I think that, yeah, hopefully any sort of blind spots that we have will be able to see.
We're also conscious of, so for the past 2 years, we've had access to this like funding, which has been for the sole purpose of getting WA acts over. So we were able to go, okay, there's this pool of money that is there for the specific purpose. So, and we also like understand that there's now this SNAP funding, which is awesome. So we will, we want people from Perth to come over and participate. So we will be. There's no shortage of acts from Sydney who want to play South by, right? But we're going to be going, well, we know this funding's available. We know that it's kind of a unique opportunity for WA artists, like, looking at it from that lens as well.
And yeah, and at the end of the day, it is competitive. It's 100 acts out of 1,500 applications and a lot of other factors at play. So
yeah, like I really appreciate that. I suppose it's just one of those things. It's I was just checking, and it sounds like you guys are onto it, but I was just checking that the lack of geographical proximity and the lack of people who've seen your live show in person isn't a factor that works against you when there's already other factors like competitiveness working against you. But it sounds like you guys are onto it, so I really appreciate that. I've got more questions, but I'll let someone else take over first, obviously.
In terms of the people we're talking to, we do talk to people from WA as well. It's not like we only know people.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, that was kind of my question.
There's also like a spot, and I know not everyone's recording their shows, but if you want to link to a recording of a live set as well, that's super helpful. Whether that's a video recording or audio. So
great. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. I'll let someone else take over and then maybe circle back.
Thanks.
No, thanks, Ben. Those are all great questions. Was there anyone else who had anything? Otherwise, Ben might get on to his next one.
And nobody wants that. Trust me, guys. Ask some questions.
I think we've got 2 questions in the chat.
Oh, thanks. I had missed that. So thank you for that. I'm just scrolling back to see the first one. There's one from Zam there regarding your unsigned artists.
Unsigned artists. I mean, like this is an event for unsigned artists. Like the idea is like that you come over and hopefully start, obviously getting signed is a process, and we don't expect many people to do handshake deals on the spot, although that did happen a couple of times last year. But like again, I'm talking about export readiness, but we also say artistic quality kick-ass live shows. So not to repeat myself, but like they're the things that we're looking for in no particular order. Newness is good. And like I said, like we're kind of surprised but pleased to see like very little crossover from Big Sound, who are also probably would say the same thing, that that's what they're looking for as well. And it just goes to show that like it's pretty subjective at like what that means, which is kind of good and bad. It just means that like we'll look carefully at everything, and and
we might not catch everything, and that's a good reason to apply again next year, I'd say. So might be
sounds good. Finn, did you want to throw another question in before I do a wrap up, unless there's anything from anyone else?
Okay, I'll take that as a yes. This is more of a kind of sort of industry-based question because I've attended a couple of Big Sounds and South by Southwest a couple of years ago in a capacity as a session player, not in my as now I'm applying as an artist in my own right. But I've never been to one of these events without a manager, and I'm someone that doesn't have a manager at the moment, and maybe that's something I'd be looking to get from South by Southwest potentially. But there aren't that many managers in Perth, to be honest, and it's one of those things that's I have been to a lot of these sort of networky things. I got a delegate pass one year. We were going to Big Sound just to sort of check it out, and it felt as though it was a bit of a strange situation to be in, where you were at like a manager's event because you're representing yourself, but you're not a manager, and so you're kind of an artist without representation, trying to network at these events that are specifically stratified towards managers, and it kind of feels like there's a bit of a barrier there. I suppose my kind of real question was, how much point is there going, even if you get in, is there that much point going if you don't have representation?
Look, like, to be honest, a manager is one of the things that goes towards export readiness, because the great majority of artists that do go on to tour overseas or even nationally, like, they do have management, and that's just the reality. Having said that, I've got a background as an artist manager, but also a publicist. There's like two of my favorite bands are like, well, so I work very closely with Cub Sport. They're self-managed. They're actually the best managers I've ever worked with because they're just so organized and motivated and all of that. I also know, like, obviously your Western Australian colleague Spacey Jane, they manage themselves for a long time. So I think even though that's the exception, like, doesn't necessarily exclude you, but I'm not going to lie, like, having a manager is really helpful. But if your live show is really good and we kind of determined that, like, it is of that level that you should be playing at our event, then I would feel fairly confident that, like, that's going to be an outcome of, like, playing at South by Sydney.
Yeah, and I know of at least like 3 acts off the top of my head from last year that picked up management at South by. One that really sticks out is Phoebe Rings from New Zealand, great indie band, and Max Thomas, who in his day job works at Secretly here, like, for Asia Pacific, I guess. Loved the band so much that him and another Sydney-based manager picked them up to manage them as well. So I think, depends on who's around, and I think if there's also just, I think there's a lot of people that are just there because they love music and they also work in the industry, and I think making some of those connections with people you want to chat to before you come can be helpful, but can also be sort of serendipitous as well.
In the app, there's like, what am I looking for at South by? And, like, a manager is one of the things that you can tick. So, like,
yeah, okay, cool.
It will be obvious to people. And at the very least, like, because you'll get a part, if an artist you get chosen to play, you can choose your form of compensation. One of them is to access the Pro Pass, which gives you access to the full range of professional development things. So if anything, it will enhance your knowledge and equip you with skills to manage yourself, if that's what you want to do, or just in the interim if you're still, like, if the search is ongoing. So yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, I might just give one last chance for anyone else to jump in, and then if not, we can wrap it up before 1:30, which is a good win. If there's not anything else, I'll just say thanks to everyone for joining. Appreciate kind of course, the team from New South Wales for jumping in the day before jumping on a plane over to Austin. So it's good that we could squeeze this in and give opportunity for a few questions from WA. And I just also would want to reinforce that kind of WAM's here in order to provide support for people who need support for either grant applications, or if you want to just bounce some things off us about your application for South by Southwest Sydney. I think, our team's here with an open door, always willing to chat and kind of work through these issues, or kind of, field questions back to Claire or Reg and kind of be a conduit through to whoever you need us to be as well. And yeah, look, huge thanks to Claire and Reg. Thank you for joining us, and thank you
Thanks
for
so much for having us.
to WA.
Hopefully see some pieces over in October.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thanks. Have a good day.
Take
See ya.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.